A huge hologram had caused the Galactic Union's War Council to descend into chaos. At the center of the chamber, the image of the Phaean Armada loomed, a force larger than any fleet the Union had ever assembled. Rows upon rows of sleek black warships stretched out as far as the eye could see, forming a spiral that resembled a noose wrapping around the galaxy's last hope. General Calvar, the reptilian commander of the Baron fleet, stood rigid. His brow was furrowed with contempt as he spat the words, "We bet our future on these, Captain." He gestured disdainfully toward the dull patchwork fleet flying the Union's flag. At the edge of the round table, Captain Harris sat silently. The Earth insignia was sewn onto his uniform, his face betrayed nothing even as the tension pressed down on him like a vice. Earth hadn't been summoned to this final stand for its strength, they were called because the Union was desperate. Desperate enough to use every scrap of technology, no matter how primitive. "I've seen cargo freighters with more equipment than Earth's rust buckets," Calvar muttered. Perhaps he was smirking, but Harris didn't flinch. Instead, he looked down at the table, calm and unreadable among those who still had a real chance to win. Then his communicator vibrated. A single coded message flashed across its silent screen, "Relic is positioned." Harris leaned forward slightly, slipped the device back into his pocket, and whispered, "We'll be ready." Calvar turned to him, his eyes narrowing like a predator sensing a trap. "You are." Harris's tone mocked Earth's place at the table, echoing what everyone already believed, that Earth was a relic of the past, a dying world clinging to obsolete ships and faded glory. The council members didn't even try to hide their scorn. In the center of the room, the hologram shifted. The Phaean Armada, already overwhelming, gave way to a new image, the vast swirling Jandar Nebula. The Union's fleet was assembling just outside of it, a patchwork of desperation, hundreds of ships barely held together by faith and duct tape spread across the battlefield. "Deploy the front line," Calvar ordered with a dismissive wave. "Let's see how long we can hold the Phaean ranks." Orders echoed through the room, a chorus of clipped voices. The final stand had begun. Outside the council chambers, Harris walked into a dimly lit alcove away from the others. Activating his personal communicator, a new message appeared, "All systems go." He allowed himself a fleeting smile. The galaxy thought Earth's last dreadnought, the SS Relic, had been decommissioned, mothballed, forgotten. But it had been hidden, tucked inside a pocket dimension in hyperspace, waiting for this moment. Harris had watched for months, waiting for the right signal. Now it had come. From his vantage point, Harris watched as the Union's fleet collided with the Armada. Light flared across the stars, brutal, one-sided destruction. Union ships were vaporized, shields collapsing under the sheer power of the Phaean barrage. "We've lost a fleet," someone screamed. "The second wave's been cut off." Panic swept through the War Council. Fleet after fleet fell. Whispered prayers and broken commands echoed through the chamber. Calvar's fists clenched. "We need more time," he growled, but his voice trailed off as the holographic battlefield flickered, showing a spatial distortion ripping across the rear of the Union fleet. Reality bent and cracked. Something massive was coming through. A voice whispered from across the room, "Who is that?" Harris sat straighter, eyes locked on the anomaly. Out of the rift, a black silhouette emerged, massive, alien, and silent. "The SS Relic?" "No, it can't be," Calvar gasped. The room fell into stunned silence. The fabled dreadnought, long believed lost, was not only operational, it was leading the charge. Its hull, pitch black and unnervingly quiet, glided across the void. The Relic's cannons lit up, unleashing devastating energy beams that sliced cleanly through the enemy. The Phaean Armada, once thought invincible, burst apart like tissue under a scalpel. Whole fleets disintegrated under the Relic's onslaught. A council officer whispered, "They're not even firing back." Calvar stared speechless. Earth, the forgotten, the dismissed, had just turned the tide. Captain Harris allowed himself a faint smile. "You were saying, General?" Before Kalvar could reply, alarms screamed through the chamber. The Phaean weren't finished. Their main flagship was entering the battle, a monstrous vessel dwarfing even the dreadnought. Phase 2 had begun. Harris's communicator buzzed again, displaying a single directive: get ready. The Phaean's flagship was a colossus of mass and darkness. Even the hologram struggled to contain its image, it blotted out entire sectors of space. The SS Relic had won the first battle, but this was the real war. Captain Harris stood firm, his knuckles white on the table. The flagship was more than just size, it was intelligent, adaptable, and built to kill. "We can't take that thing head-on," Commander Malik said grimly. Harris didn't answer immediately. He was thinking, calculating. Finally, in a low voice, he said, "We don't need to take it head-on. If we make the relic more agile, we can outflank them." Malik raised an eyebrow. "They're luring us into their tech. This is their final card." Harris nodded. "And they weren't expecting us to hold an ace." Low murmurs hummed through the chamber. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Outside, the battlefield had turned chaotic. The relic tore forward, flanking smaller ships. The flagship loomed closer, pulsing with energy. The crew of the relic moved like clockwork, preparing for a strike that would decide everything. "Crank up the secondary systems," Harris ordered. "Prepare evasive maneuvers." Malik hesitated. "We're not giving the reactors a chance to stabilize." Harris looked him dead in the eye. "This ship wasn't built to stabilize. It was built to win." The engines screamed to life. Despite its size, the relic surged forward with grace. Plasma bolts from the Phaean's flagship scorched across the stars. One hit, massive, glowing, struck home. Shields shimmered. 60%, came a voice over the comm. "We need to close the gap," Harris ordered. The relic pivoted, engines burning, dodging cruisers and returning fire. It was made for this: speed, precision, overwhelming force. As they neared the flagship, Malik muttered, "We're nearing the disruptor cannon's range. We have to get inside their weak points." Harris shot back, "We keep them off balance, or we die." The relic dived, its hull glowing with energy. Enemy ships scrambled. Damage reports flowed in, but the dreadnought held. Sirens howled. The massive Phaean flagship loomed like a black hole, drawing everything into its orbit. The moment was here. The communicator buzzed one last time, a single word: now. Captain Harris gave a slow nod. "Let's end this." As the disruptor cannon glowed with renewed energy and prepared to fire, Harris said, "Hold us steady." Despite everything going on around him, the ship's helmsman stayed composed, almost serene. With a firm nod, Lieutenant O'Hara danced her fingers over the controls. "We'll hold course, Captain." The relic ripped across the battlefield, slicing through the ship's energy. Turrets cut the fighters as they crowded around the wreckage. Hostile fire fell short before making a significant strike. Inside the ship, the tension was evident, with each crew member clutching his station. "We're too close," Malik said in a warning voice as they drew closer to the flagship. Captain Harris broke eye contact. "If that disruptor cannon fires." "It won't," he continued before Malik could finish. "With us so close, they won't risk damaging their own ships." Due to the flagship's increasing weaponry, Malik looked at Harris's face. Astonishment and hesitant faith mixed behind his eyes. "You're..." Malik began. Harris replied, eyes fixed toward the enemy fleet, "I'm betting on their life, and I'm gambling with all of ours." A few seconds passed. The relic pushed forward, for hours, at least it felt that way, weaving between enemy cruisers and Phaean flagship support vessels. As the last seconds ticked away before the disruptor cannon could explode, it pulsed with hazardous energy. And then, just as it achieved critical mass, the flagship's fire held. The brilliance faded. Harris's eyes narrowed. "They can't fire." Malik whispered, barely believing it, "We have them exactly where we need them. They can't shoot without destroying their own fleet." But the respite was brief. Smaller cannons on the flagship opened, heavily firing upon the relic. The ship moaned under the strain, shields flashing dangerously. "Shields down to 10%, someone yelled as another blast shook the hull, leaving crew members dazed. "Malik," Harris called. He straightened, gripping the console for support. He knew they wouldn't withstand another assault. "Helm, put us in position." His face hardened. Lieutenant O'Hara worked fast at her station. They were almost there when the relic swerved to the side. It was a brave decision, placing itself squarely beneath the Phaeon's flagship. Not only did it put them in the flagship's blind spot, it also put them near its main engines. Lieutenant Kalin, the weapons officer, immediately obeyed. He spread the targeting coordinates and launched a barrage of energy blasts and torpedoes, all aimed directly at the flagship's propulsion systems. The relic shuddered as its weapon systems discharged. Explosions rippled briefly through space. The flagship loomed above them, unharmed, until the engines exploded in flame. The initial blast shook the ship's lower decks. The shock wave tore through the back of the enormous spacecraft, sending debris flying in all directions. "They're handicapped," Kalin yelled in triumph. Harris's eyes lit up. He stayed glued to the screen as the damage increased. "Don't rejoice just yet." The ship's backup system surged to life. Though damaged, the flagship was not finished. Its